Alright everyone, it's time for a sort of annual thing that I do, which is just to give a unique thank you to those of you who are helping support me on Patreon and Subscribestar. By the way, links in the description there. Subscribestar, for most purposes, eclipsing Patreon at this point. It's funny because, like, in the wake of them abusing Sargon, so many people left the site. For a while, it looked like they might become insolvent. I think they did downsize, if I remember correctly. Anyway, they haven't banned me yet. I'll keep using their site, but I'm not necessarily happy with all of their practices as a company. Just keeping that in mind. Now, keeping in mind as well, the reason why I'm able to make as much content as I do is that I'm able to derive part of my income therefrom, and therefore it is feasible for me to do that. Ultimately, if I weren't making any money at, the content creation thing, I probably would make less, not because it wouldn't interest me as much, but I'd need some of that time probably to dedicate to doing more literary work. Because, of course, that's the other component of my income. I sell books on Amazon and its various affiliates. Again, not necessarily happy, but, there's no alternative at the moment for publishing on demand. None that you don't have to pay for your own copies and ship them out yourself. By the way, it's interesting how there's no competitor there. But yes, this is just a thank you to people who are doing that, because I know, like, especially in times like this, when the economy is iffy, having issues, it might be that some people, like, they're only able to give $1 a month or something. I love it, actually, when that happens, when people are sending in small donations in large numbers. It keeps the content independent as well. People with corporate contracts, we've seen this happen even among formerly independent creators. They get leaned on to alter their content, and it's not just in a way of like, well, they shout out some protein supplement every third show or something. That's fine, but then at some point that company gets pressured. Like we've literally seen like a sponsorship civil war recently on YouTube, where YouTubers are attacking one another's sponsors in order to try to screw one another, which I think is questionable behavior. And it takes two to tango, by the way. I'm not taking sides in the obvious story that I'm talking about. I'm ambivalent and don't even fucking care. But that becomes a problem. AdSense too becomes a problem. When your money is coming from your ability to create content that is generating ads, and you understand that there's a separate set of terms of service that determine what kind of content preferentially gets most of those ads, what happens is that people sanitize and self-police their content. I don't have to do that, though, because the people that I'm trying to appease that are donating are many, many people with disparate views, disparate political and religious beliefs, potentially. I'm sure it tilts in certain directions, but it's, I don't even necessarily know what politics they have. So I don't police my content to please anyone. That means that sometimes I can make videos like on MGTOW. I know there will be people that don't like the fact that I'm calling out men's rights activists for some of their excesses. If I make a video where I talk about how I support gay rights, I realize that there are certain elements of my audience that aren't necessarily hugely happy about that. If I talk about guns, some people in my audience aren't gun purists. Some people might, get spicy over it. And I think that that's great. That independence of content is literally what created YouTube. And initially, when there was no real profit motive from it, like a person might advertise that they have a business, but other than that, there was no real benefit, I almost feel like content was more independent. I feel like most people took the ad revenue and super chat stuff and have to self-police on one end, or they got corporate sponsorships, number two, and that at least potentially leaves them vulnerable. I never did. I just said I'm going to crowdfund. And people have been very generous for a very long time on that. Again, it's very funny. The Subscribestar, that's nowhere near as big as Patreon. I think the total is almost the same, actually, is the amount on Patreon. I think I prefer Subscribestar. I think the only problem is that on the front end, I think the fees are higher, the processing fee. I don't actually know because, of course, I'm primarily receiving money on these platforms. Yeah. So a big thank you and a shout out to all of you. I would name you individually, but I mean, some of you probably don't even want to be named. A lot of people do it anonymously, and so I won't do that. But if you are supporting me or have, I do thank you for that. This is sort of the annual thank you video. It's sort of like earlier this year, I did like sort of the biannual thing where I shout out like Dailymotion and all these other sites that I'm on as opposed to YouTube because I'm trying to gravitate away from mainline tech. BitChute, Library, Brighteon, and so forth. But sometimes you got to say thanks. There's no way for me to really give back. I mean, I would do something like merch related potentially in the future. The problem with that is that the merch sales are actually unavailable at the moment due to the coronavirus epidemic. It's a very interesting time that we live in. It's played havoc with the income. It's like the paperback sales plummet and then the KDP sales skyrocket. Because people still want the books, but they don't want to wait 3 fucking months for the book to arrive. It's getting weird. It really is. Yeah. So anyway, yes, thank you video there. That's about all. Peace out.